right. Hello, everybody, and hello, Herbert. Thank you for joining us.
Hello, Joanna. It's my pleasure to be with you today.
Yeah, and once again, I want to thank you for giving a webinar back in April just for all Taiwanese teachers. That's very special for us. Thank you also for agreeing to share with us or kind of like remind the teachers some of their Q&A, their questions, which I think most of them you did answer in real time during the webinar, but I think it would be a good reminder, especially in a kind of like a back to school session, for us to review some of your great thoughts. For me, that was very insightful.
Thank you. Well, welcome, dear colleagues in Taiwan, to this Q&A session. I would like to thank you very, very much for your interesting questions. Just to make this clear, I'm talking here from my study in my home in Austria. So Joanna I've prepared a PowerPoint. Joanna's got the PowerPoint, and she's going to share the PowerPoint now. And I will have to ask you, Joanna, to switch to the next slides whenever it's needed. As I've said, thanks so much for your excellent questions. In fact, Joanna, if we go to the next slide, we can see I've prepared a bunch of flowers for you all for thinking deeply and coming up with such interesting questions. Well, actually, here are the questions that we didn't manage to answer in the live webinar. Joanna, please go to the next slide. Question number 5, what can we do to reduce peer pressure in a classroom that is full of teenagers? So that is a key point, actually, that in teenage classrooms, this peer group pressure can actually stop them from wanting to learn. It can lead to tension in the classroom. It can lead to problems among learners. Sometimes students can be rather impolite and even very unfriendly with each other. So what can we do? Let's have a look at what we've written here. I suggest that you regularly take the group temperature. What does that mean? I'm not talking about the Celsius or Fahrenheit degrees in the classroom, but the emotional temperature in the group, okay? Because only if the teacher understands the emotional climate of their classroom, then they can understand if there is a problem, if there is something where the teacher needs to step in and support, etc., etc., etc. So what can we do? Let's have a look at the next slide. So one way of finding out about the group temperature is using exit tickets. So before the students leave the classroom, or before you leave the classroom in the last few minutes, you pose 3 questions. For example, how comfortable do you feel in the group? What's the best part of being a student in this class? What aspect of classroom life would you like to change? So you see, these are very important questions. Often students would not share their thoughts unless you ask them very concretely what they think here. And you might want them to write these on pieces of paper, on so-called exit tickets. It can just be one question, and you can start with something that is safe. What do you particularly like about this group or about this class? Okay, and they write it on a piece of paper. They put it in a box, and then you read their anonymous contributions, And that will help you understand how students feel in your class. Sometimes they will be critical. Sometimes they might even criticize something that you do. And of course, we can't then go back next time and punish them for saying something critical. We actually want to learn something from that ourselves, and we might want to make some changes, or we might decide not to make changes. If my students say, well, what I don't like about this class is that we always get homework, well, I might explain to them that there is a reason why I give them homework. And homework will actually help them to become better learners. It's not about punishing them or making their life more difficult. On the other hand, if they say that there's too much homework, I might consider maybe they are right. I might just think about this and maybe change something, okay? These questions could also be asked in an online class forum if you engage with your learners in online communication. That's different from country to country and different from school to school. Learners can also be asked during the class to share their feelings in class by holding up visuals. And you could use weather symbols, cloudy, sunny, thundery, or simply a number from 1 to 10. 1 is feeling low, 10 is feeling very high. So we understand the group pressure, okay? The group temperature. There's more suggestions on the next few slides. I use micro messages a lot, okay? They're non-verbal and verbal acts of communication that we send to our student alongside of what we say to them, alongside of what we do with them in terms of activities, etc., etc., etc. We send those messages out all the time anyway. When a student makes a mistake and we go, no, then this is a micro message. And the micro message gets interpreted by the student as the teacher thinks I'm stupid, or the teacher doesn't think very highly of my capabilities, etc., etc., etc. Okay. Now, if I send out such negative micro messages, studies have shown they can create so-called micro inequities in a classroom, with some students feeling excluded or underappreciated, okay? And the impact of negative messages can damage the student's self-esteem, their self-efficacy, and their ability to make decisions in class. So I think we want to learn to send positive micro messages. How can we do that? Let's have a look at the next slide. It's a simple thing. Be sure you know your learners' names. Use them consciously. Use them regularly when we talk to them. It's better if we can use their names than if we had to say, you there, okay? Or you in the green pullover, what have you. Let's be careful with our facial expressions, with eye contact, who we smile at and when we smile, when we nod in agreement or encouragement, and how we move around the room. Studies show that when teachers think of a student highly, they smile more at those students. And other students who we maybe don't think of so highly, we don't give them our smiles. So let's share our smiles equally with everybody, each and everybody in our classrooms, okay? Involve students in micro conversations, short chats, I mentioned that already. Small talk about learning, about their lives beyond class, about their interests, the sports they play, and so on and so forth. This helps learners to feel seen and valued. And if you can, take notes of the things after class about your students, things that you learned in those micro conversations. If you learn about one student who is a brilliant, I don't know, volleyballer, or a student who is learning a musical instrument or whatever. These little bits of information, they are like social emotional jewels, okay? So when learners notice, you remember them. So a learner says they're playing the guitar or what have you, whatever instrument. And then maybe 2 weeks later you say, oh, how is your guitar playing going? Then that is fantastic for the students because they notice that you notice them, okay? They feel appreciated, they feel included, and they will be more likely to engage positively in the classroom interaction. So I have actually used quite a few of tips from 2 books. I've written many books, but these 2 books, actually, one is called 101 Tips for Teaching Teenagers. It's the green one, obviously, here. And the other one is a book that is not out yet. It's coming out in a few months' time. A book that I've had the pleasure to co-write together with Sarah Mercer, our 101 psychological tips for the language classroom. Okay,
That's
let's
really
go.
Interesting.
Thank you, Joanna. Let's go to the next slide. And this is an opportunity for me to say thank you very much for listening. I hope that you have found some of my suggestions and thoughts useful. I hope that you're going to use some of the concrete suggestions in their classrooms. You might want to change them slightly, of course, so they fit your teaching context and your learners' needs. And it's been my pleasure. Thanks again for the great questions, and all the very best with your important work with your students, whether they are young learners, primary children, or teenage students. Thank you. And Joanna, thank you too for helping me with my slides.
Well, thank you. Yeah, thanks again for just taking the time to prepare all of this to answer the questions. I was really impressed. Like when I saw this, I thought, with 5 more questions that teachers have asked that we might not have the chance to answer during the webinar, but you prepare so much with so many detailed and practical tips that I think teachers love, because they can just use it right away. They can just take it and possibly, like you said, adjust a little bit, and they can use it in the classroom right away. So thank you so much again to do this in the midst of your busyness and preparing for your travel. You said you're traveling next week, right? So I hope you have a very, very smooth journey with all the rest of your sharing that you're going to present. Thank you once again.
Thank you so much, Joanna. Bye-bye.
Bye.